Some what-ifs are about the world. Some are about you. The most interesting ones are about both at the same time, because the line between them is thinner than most people realize. This video runs through 8 scenarios that all start at the same question. What changes when the rules shift? Some of those rules are economic, some are political. And 4 of them are the quiet, personal ones. The ones about how you see other people, how you use your time, what you know, and what gets remembered about you. 8 what-ifs. From the biggest systems on Earth down to the timeline above your own head. Let's go. Money stopped existing at midnight. Every currency, every bank balance, every digital figure zeroed. Simultaneously, everywhere. The first week is panic. Then something unexpected happens. People start working out what they actually need. Supply chains built entirely on profit motives stall, but local food networks, already semi-functional in many communities, flex to absorb the gap. The question isn't whether people will work without money. Most people already do things for reasons beyond pay. The question is, who decides what gets made and who gets it? Without price as the distribution mechanism, power shifts to whoever controls physical resources: land, water, energy, food. Within months, new hierarchies form, not around wealth, but around access. The world doesn't become equal when money disappears. It becomes differently unequal, on terms nobody has a rulebook for. Would a world without money be better, or just differently broken? Remove money, and you remove one system of power. But here's the next question. What happens when you try to replace that system with something even bigger? Every country on Earth signed a single agreement overnight. One government, one set of laws, one shared administration. Effective immediately. The first challenge is language. There is no global language every human speaks, and the choice of which one the government operates in is itself a political decision with centuries of baggage. The second challenge is representation. A government that weighs every human equally gives enormous power to India and China, whose combined population dwarfs most coalitions. Nations that have spent centuries building distinct legal, cultural, and constitutional systems don't simply fold them because a document says to. Within 6 months, the first regional breakaway movements form. Ironically, more of them than existed before unification. What the world government does solve, potentially, pandemics, climate coordination, nuclear weapons policy. What it creates, the largest single point of failure in human political history. Would a world government be the best or worst thing that ever happened? A world government concentrates power into one place. The next scenario removes the one thing that's historically kept that kind of power from turning violent. Every weapon on Earth, guns, bombs, missiles, knives designed as weapons, gone. Vanished. As of this morning. The immediate effect, every active conflict on Earth pauses. Not because the will to fight disappears, but because the tools do. Within weeks, the question becomes, what replaces them? History shows that humans have always found implements to fight with. The absence of manufactured weapons shifts conflict toward improvised ones, and toward economic and psychological pressure. Countries whose geopolitical power was built almost entirely on military capability, the US, Russia, China, suddenly operate on different terms. The countries that fare best in this world are the ones whose power was always more economic and diplomatic than military. Switzerland, Singapore, Norway. The fundamental insight that nobody wants to say out loud. Weapons were never the cause of conflict. They were just a most efficient expression of it. Would a world without weapons be more peaceful, or just differently violent? Without weapons, physical force stops being how power gets enforced. The next what if asks what happens when economic force gets leveled instead, down to the very last pound per hour. Overnight, every country, one figure, £14.50 an hour, non-negotiable, global. For a worker in Bangladesh or Ethiopia, this is a life-changing wage increase, instantly and dramatically. For a business operating in those countries and paying current local rates, it's an immediate crisis. Manufacturing that relocated to lower wage countries for cost reasons, which is most of global manufacturing, has to recalculate its entire model overnight. Prices of goods produced in previously low-wage countries rise sharply. The developed world, accustomed to cheap electronics, clothing, and consumer goods subsidized by wage inequality elsewhere, starts paying the actual cost of production. Some industries move towards automation faster than they would have. The global cost of living reshapes around a flaw that never existed before. The world doesn't become equal, but for the first time, labor has a universal minimum value. Would a global minimum wage fix inequality, or just move it? Those 4 scenarios were about the world's systems. The next 4 are closer to home. They're about the rules that govern you specifically, starting with one number that changes everything about how you read a room. A number appears above every person you look at, their exact age, down to the month. The first thing that changes is how you read people. The 45-year-old who looks 30, the 28-year-old who looks exhausted and 40. The number strips away every assumption you'd built around someone's appearance. Dating changes immediately, because the gap between how old someone looks and how old they are is suddenly visible. Age-related discrimination becomes impossible to hide and impossible to deny in the workplace. But the strangest effect is what it does to how you see yourself. You start calculating the numbers of people around you in relation to yours. You're surrounded by people younger, people older, people exactly your age. And the number above each of them suddenly makes mortality feel like something that's happening in real time, not something that's coming eventually. What age would you least want someone to see above your head? Seeing everyone's age changes how you perceive the people around you. The next what if changes how much time you have and what you actually do with it. You stopped needing sleep 3 weeks ago. Your body just doesn't require it anymore. You've gained 8 extra hours a day. The first week, you used the time productively. The second week, you run out of things you'd been putting off and start the things you'd been avoiding. By week 3, the quiet between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., hours that used to be unconscious, are now just hours. You're awake for all of them. The world is designed around people who sleep. Most of it shuts down at night. The social rituals built around sleep, the wind down, the shared morning, the dream you mention over coffee, disappear from your life. You gain 56 extra hours a week. That's roughly 2.5 extra working days every week for the rest of your life. Whether that sounds like freedom or like a sentence depends entirely on what you do with the time. What would you do with 8 extra hours a day? 8 extra hours a day sounds like freedom, until you've had 3 weeks of 2 a.m. with nothing to do but think. The next scenario gives you something to do with all of it, in 7,000 languages. You wake up and every language on Earth is accessible to you. All 7,000 of them, including the ones with fewer than 100 speakers left. The first week you test it. You listen to a conversation in Japanese on the train and understand every word. Not just the meaning, but the subtext, the regional accent, the thing left unsaid. You call a relative who'd always been slightly out of reach across the language barrier and have the first fully honest conversation you've ever had with them. Then comes the harder part. You start understanding everything. The conversation behind you in a cafe, the argument 2 tables over in a language you'd never encountered before yesterday. The privacy that language barriers accidentally created, gone. You are now permanently, exhaustingly able to understand everyone around you. Within a month, you start to miss the comfortable ignorance of not knowing what the person across from you was actually saying. Which language would you try first, and why? Understanding everyone around you changes how you receive the world. The final what if changes how the world receives you, by making everything you've ever chosen impossible to hide. Above your head, right now, is a visible timeline. Every decision you've ever made. Anyone who looks at you can read it. The timeline shows not just what you chose, but what you didn't. Every path not taken, hovering there in sequence. The job you didn't apply for. The conversation you walked away from. The person you didn't call back. People around you are reading your timeline the way you read a CV, looking for patterns, assessing choices, forming conclusions. The ones who look best are not the people who made perfect decisions. They don't exist on any timeline. The ones who look best are the ones whose decisions, good and bad, have a visible thread of intention. The people who look worst are the ones whose timelines show a long sequence of decisions made to avoid discomfort. Not wrong exactly, but without direction. The timelines can't show what would have happened, only what was chosen. That turns out to be the hardest part to look at. What decision on your timeline would you least want visible? 8 what-ifs. 4 about systems, 4 about you, and if you noticed, they're all asking the same question underneath. What does power actually look like when the thing enforcing it changes? Whether that thing is money, weapons, a wage floor, or the quiet social rules about age and sleep and language, take it away or shift it, and something new fills the gap, always. The world's systems and the decisions above your head operate on the same logic. Whoever sets the rules shapes what everyone else does next. Subscribe if that's the kind of thinking you want more of. July isn't done yet. 2 more compilations are coming this week.